Okay, let's just get right into it. We've all been there, right? You're sitting in a demo for some new AI tool. The interface is slick, the numbers on the screen are huge and impressive, and you start to think, wow, this could solve everything. But today, we're going to pull back that curtain. We're going to talk about how to actually evaluate these vendors without just getting swept up in the sales pitch. And this quote, this just nails the problem perfectly, doesn't it? Every single vendor has a killer demo. It's their job. But there is almost always this giant chasm between that perfect, polished presentation and what actually happens when you try to get it working in your messy, real-world environment. So what does that disconnect really look like? Well, on one hand, you have the vendor pitch, right? Everything's a seamless workflow, the pricing is simple, governance is a checkbox. But then you get to the project reality, and suddenly it's months of complex integration work. It's hidden costs that pop up and scale in ways you never expected. And those governance controls, yeah, they're either totally immature or just not there. Now, this slide is so important because it shows us why that disconnect happens. See, most of us, when we're buying, we focus on that left column. We look at the pretty interface, the long feature list, the price tag. But the things that actually determine whether you succeed or fail, they're all on the right. It's the nitty-gritty stuff. How hard is it really to integrate? Is the vendor even going to be around in 3 years? What happens when you need support? We're so busy evaluating the product, we forget to evaluate the partner. So how do we fix this? How do we bridge that gap? We have to start asking way, way better questions. I'm going to walk you through 6 specific questions that will totally reframe how you look at these vendors. They'll shift you from just looking at the product to truly assessing the fit. Let's jump into the first one. This is such a powerful first question, and you can't let them give you some hypothetical answer. You have to ask them to describe a real deployment that went sideways. A vendor that can give you an honest, specific story about what went wrong, that's a vendor with real-world experience. If they can't answer this, it probably means they've never actually stuck around long enough to see a project through its entire messy life cycle. All right, so that first question really tests a vendor's experience and their honesty. The second one digs into a critical technical detail, one that separates the mature, safe systems from the really risky ones. Okay, so here's the thing. Every single AI model produces some outputs it's not very confident about. That's just how they work. The question is, can the system tell you which ones they are? You need to ask them to show you, live, what a low-confidence result looks like compared to a high-confidence one. If their system can't tell the difference, it's a system that will fail silently. And that, my friends, is a massive, massive risk you just can't take. All right, on to question number 3. And if you work in any kind of regulated industry, finance, healthcare, you name it, this one is completely non-negotiable. Let's be clear. The audit trail isn't some nice-to-have feature. It's a core compliance requirement. You need to know exactly where the logs are, what's in them, and who has the keys. And here's the crucial part. Make them show you live. Do not accept a screenshot in a PowerPoint deck. Make them run a real query against the actual log. If they hesitate or they can't do it, their audit capability just isn't ready for prime time. Okay, question 4 gets into something that, for some reason, people wait to ask until way too late in the game, like when the contract is already sitting with the legal team. You have to ask this in the very first conversation. Simple questions. Is my data being used to train your big global model? Where is it physically stored? Who on your team can actually see it? And, so critically, what happens to my data when we part ways? The answers to these questions are going to have huge implications for your security and compliance teams. Now for question 5. This one is all about shifting the focus away from that pre-sale honeymoon period and into the long-term reality of the relationship. Look, during the sales process, everyone's your best friend, right? You've got the CEO's cell number. But what happens after the ink is dry on that contract? You need to ask for the specifics of your support model. And here is the pro tip. Insist on speaking with a customer who is at least 12 to 18 months post-deployment. They will give you the real, unvarnished truth about what happens when things inevitably break. We've covered failure, uncertainty, audits, data, and support. That brings us to our final and maybe the most forward-looking question of all, one that tackles the fast-changing world of AI rules and regulations. The regulatory landscape is moving so fast right now. You've got major things like the EU AI Act coming down the pike. A vendor who doesn't have a clear documented plan for how they're going to adapt their product to meet these future requirements is a huge risk. Ask to see their roadmap. If they just give you a blank stare, what you're really looking at is a future liability.
Okay, so we've gone through the questions to ask. Now let's talk about 3 big red flags, the kind of thing that should make you just stand up and walk out of the meeting. The first one, a vendor who can only show you a demo environment. Look, a demo environment is a perfectly manicured garden. You need to see how their tool behaves in the wild, with real, messy, unpredictable data.
Oh man, this next one is huge. If a vendor ever tries to sell you governance or audit capabilities as some kind of premium add-on, that tells you everything you need to know about their priorities. For any serious company, governance isn't a luxury, it's the absolute baseline. A vendor who prices it like an optional extra fundamentally does not understand your world.
And the final deal breaker, a vendor who can't connect you with any long-term customers. You know, if they've been in business for a few years, but every single one of their references is brand new, you have to ask yourself why. It's often a sign that their earlier customers have left or aren't happy, and that is a major, major warning sign. So, all of these questions, all of these red flags, they're all pointing to one really profound shift in thinking, and it's this. When you are evaluating an AI vendor, you are not just selecting a product.
You are selecting a governance partner. Let that sink in. This isn't just buying software. The tool they build is going to impact your customers, your employees, your company's entire risk profile for years. This isn't just another procurement exercise. It's a strategic decision about who you want to be in business with.
So what does that actually look like? Well, when you start looking at them through this governance partner lens, you assess everything differently. You stop obsessing over the feature list and you start scrutinizing that long-term relationship. You start asking how their product decisions and their support model are going to impact your ability to operate safely and effectively. So, to wrap this all up, let's make it super practical. Before you even get on the phone with another vendor, I want you to just take a minute and answer 2 questions for yourself first. These 2 questions are your new starting point. First, what is the single most important governance rule we absolutely cannot break? And second, what's the most likely way this whole thing could blow up in our specific environment? I guarantee answering these 2 questions internally first will tell you more about a vendor's true fit and do it faster than any RFP or slick demo ever could.